Next, I would like to welcome back to the stage Lily Sander, who's going to talk to us a little bit about patient journey.
Good morning again. Thank you for having me back on the stage. As we step into the patient experience, I'd like to invite you by posing a question for your consideration. When was the last time you felt completely exhausted? Not just tired after a long day, but the kind of exhaustion that settles deep into your bones. The kind where sleep doesn't fully restore you. Maybe it was after an intense week at work, or maybe for many of you it was during residency, where expectations were high and rest was scarce. Now, imagine waking up every morning with that same exhaustion, not for a week, but for years. And imagine still needing to build a life around it. For many people living with neuromuscular diseases, this is not a hypothetical question, but their reality. My name is Lily Sander, as we know, and I live with Charcot-Marie-Tooth type 1E and HNPP. I'm currently finishing high school and preparing for college, a time that should simply be about excitement and possibility, and in a lot of ways it is. But like many young people living with neuromuscular conditions, my future also carries uncertainty. Not because I lack ambition or curiosity, but because my body doesn't always cooperate with the plans my mind makes. To understand what that tension feels like, it helps to start at the beginning. When I was 4 years old, my parents began noticing that something wasn't quite right. I was tripping more often, walking seemed harder, my balance wasn't what it should have been. At that age, I didn't understand the medical language or the conversations happening between doctors and my parents. What I understood was much simpler. I understood that things that once felt easy now felt difficult. I noticed that other kids could run across the playground without thinking about it, while I had to focus carefully on every step. I noticed that my parents were watching me more closely, and I noticed that the adults in my life had begun having serious conversations about my future. Eventually, doctors diagnosed me with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. For many families affected by neuromuscular diseases, that moment of diagnosis becomes a turning point. It introduces uncertainty, questions about mobility, adaptation, independence, and their future. But over time, diagnoses also mean something else. It becomes the beginning of adaptation, learning how to navigate the world in new ways, and discovering what it means to build a life alongside limitations. As I grew older, that process of adaptation gradually revealed another challenge that would shape my life: learning how to balance ambition with my physical limits. Inside me lives what I like to call this intellectual beast. It's the part of me that loves ideas, challenges, and discovery, the part that wants to dive deeply into questions, push boundaries, and explore everything that fascinates me. But my body sends a different message: slow down, rest, stop. Living with a neuromuscular disease means constantly negotiating between these two realities. My mind pushes forward, eager to do more. My body asks me to pause. That tension shapes daily decisions in ways that many people never have to think about. Sometimes it means choosing between two activities I care deeply about, simply because I don't have the energy for both. Sometimes it means watching opportunities pass me by because my body needs recovery time. Over time, I began to understand that one of the biggest forces shaping these decisions was something people often underestimate: fatigue. Fatigue is one of the most significant and most misunderstood aspects of living with a neuromuscular disease. It isn't simply being tired. It is a deep, persistent exhaustion that quietly influences nearly every decision I make throughout the day. I often think about energy the way someone might think about money. Walking across campus has a cost. Standing in line has a cost. Climbing a flight of stairs has a great cost. Even sustained concentration has a cost. Before many people have finished their morning coffee, I've already started calculating: how far will I need to walk today? How many stairs will there be? Will I have time to recover before the next activity? These calculations happen constantly and quietly behind the scenes, and because fatigue is invisible, it is often misunderstood. Someone may look at me and see a young person who appears healthy and energized. What they don't see are the invisible negotiations happening in my mind, the constant balancing of energy and recovery. Once you begin to understand how much fatigue shapes daily life for patients, something else becomes clear. Accessibility is not just about buildings. It's about systems that recognize these invisible realities. When people hear the word accessibility, they often think about ramps or elevators, and those things matter deeply. But true accessibility goes much deeper. It means designing healthcare systems and research environments that recognizing fluctuating strength and limited energy. It means clinical trials that consider burden and fatigue. It means flexibility. And it means communication that allows patients to fully understand and participate in their care. Accessibility is not simply about removing barriers. It is about creating pathways that allow patients not only to receive care, but to help shape the future of that care. And one of the most powerful ways to create those pathways is by listening to the voices of the patients themselves. Advocacy has become a significant and important part of my journey. Sharing my experience is not always easy, but it is always powerful. Because when patients speak, research becomes more connected to real lives. Patient voices help shape questions that truly matter. They help researchers understand outcomes that extend beyond numbers and measurements. And they remind all of us that behind every data point is a human story. Through that experience, I've also learned something important about living with a chronic condition. Life rarely fits into simple categories of struggle or triumph. More often, it holds both at the same time. Living with a neuromuscular disease has taught me the power of and. Life can hold devastation and joy, challenge and growth, uncertainty and hope. Resilience doesn't mean pretending difficulty isn't real. It means acknowledging it and still choosing to move forward. And when I think about moving forward, I think about the future that all of us in this room are helping to shape. What gives me the most hope about neuromuscular disease research is the possibility of deeper partnership between patients and the people in this room. Patients bring valuable lived experience, the daily realities that statistics alone can never capture. Researchers bring scientific creativity and innovation. Clinicians bring the insight that comes from walking alongside patients through diagnosis, treatment, and care. And when those perspectives come together, something powerful happens. Research questions become more connected to real life. Clinical trials become more accessible and meaningful. And the outcomes we measure began to reflect what patients actually care about: independence, participation, and quality of life. For my generation of patients, the work happening in rooms like this one represent possibility. Possibility that future treatments will not only slow disease progression, but improve daily living. Possibility that accessibility will expand opportunities, and possibility that the next generation of patients will face fewer barriers than the generations before them. Today, I invited you to walk in my shoes. But in many ways, the work you do allows patients like me to keep moving forward in those shoes. Your research, your dedication, and your commitment to understanding neuromuscular diseases shape the future of this community. Because of that work, young people like me can imagine futures filled with possibility. And for that, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for taking the time to walk in my shoes.